Okay.
Good morning, it's 10:07 a.m. Saturday, January 19th. Hereby call, first of all, let me check we have a quorum. We do have a quorum for the MPO RFP Project Committee meeting. Hereby call this meeting to order. First item of business is to review and approve the minutes of the December 8th, 2018 meeting. Do I have a motion to move?
I'll move that they be approved.
Okay,
I will second.
Okay, I'll say Skip got you, beat you to it, so.
He's faster than I am, so
Okay.
gotta watch that old guy, right?
I was gonna say, he's on this game. I'd like to open it up for discussion on the minutes. If there's any changes to the minutes. I have reviewed the minutes as a supplied that were supplied to me today, and satisfied that they actually represent what we reviewed at the December 8th meeting. Any discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And it's passed unanimously. Okay, item number 3. Discussion and possible action on library matters. We'll say at the last meeting, we did not have the library moved in, and now we do. And so there's obviously been some pretty good action that's taken place in the interim. And I know Skip has some more information to present on this. So Skip, go ahead, please.
Mr. Anthony's been very effective in getting the books all moved into the council chamber. They're all on the north, I guess it's the south wall over there. And now the issue is to see if we can get some organization and some kind of setup to make the library operable. I'm thinking that maybe we should ask the council to appoint a library committee. And Ms. Scott was on last week when we didn't have a meeting, and said that she was interested in working with the library. So I'd like to talk to her further about heading up a library committee to organize the books, at least in alphabetical order by author in the fiction section, and however they decide on the other matters, and come up with a set of operating rules for the library. Mr. Howell at the last council meeting said he put $100 up to put in one of the books if the people were coming to work on the library, whoever found the money could keep it.
That was only when you were present, though.
I'm sorry?
That was only when you were present.
What did he say after?
If only Councilman McCormick was present. That's why I was going to say, Mr. Paul, you're here to look for that 100.
So there's Skip, you have to be here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was a clarification, but
Okay, well,
anyways.
in any case, so I guess the question is whether or not we want to recommend to the council that we appoint a library committee. Any discussion on that? What do you guys think?
Sounds like a reasonable idea to me.
Yeah, sure. Skip, I guess the need for a committee, I don't know if we want to formalize it to that degree, but to have a advocate, which this could, I think, Councilman Scott would be an appropriate advocate, but to have a volunteer, I don't know if there's any sort of staff that could help shepherd this also. I know as you're limited staff at this point in time, is there anybody that either from the police department or somebody that could help shepherd this along with Councilman Scott? I think that would be potentially appropriate if possible.
I mean, I could canvass current employees in different departments to see if they're willing to assist or volunteer some time. I'm sure, not speaking for any employee, but they may do that.
Okay, and then obviously we'd love some, citizen participation in that also to help.
I'd like to suggest that I personally I would prefer citizen participation.
Right.
I hate to ask our paid employees to come in and do stuff, like this, that probably should be done by a citizens group or citizens volunteer if they're available. I think if we don't have that much interest in the library, then maybe the appropriate thing to do is let's some point we either decide we need to do away with it and either give away or sell the books rather than to fool with it. If the citizens are not interested, if nobody cares, we shouldn't waste our time on it.
I mean, your suggestions are very sage. And so let me comment in that we need to advertise that we're looking for that help and bring that to council would make some sense.
I've put it into the next door.
And then on next door,
The
yes.
last the last 2 meetings, I've had it in at least 6 times.
Okay.
In next door.
Have you had any responses?
Not
So
long.
can we advertise on our little white sign here in the front as well too? And if cost, that won't cost us anything, I won't, we won't be spending a slot,
On the billboard?
Yeah, little blackboard out here in the front.
What about the billboard also?
So the billboards might cost us a slot, but I mean, I guess we could go and have a call for volunteers to scroll or something like that. So if we have other volunteers, perhaps we can kind of slide all that in together. I was under the impression, I could be wrong, but I believe that the last meeting or the meeting before, that there was somebody who, at least we were going to ask for, they had volunteered and actually had like real librarian experience and knew about how to structure and organize a library, small or otherwise. And that person would be a natural person to at least tap, or at least we could, say, hey, can you do this, or at least you advise us on what's the level of effort that is going to occur here for us to maintain and manage this right here. And it might be such that it is such an onerous task that we do want to go ahead and end up selling everything. But I mean, it'd be a good idea to go ahead and get perhaps an idea from somebody who's done this before, and let them lend it to us.
Could that be in the prerogative of Councilman Scott, if she ends up, take kind of shepherding this?
I wasn't sure who it was that actually had librarian experience.
Okay.
I would think that, if I were her, I would think that it would be a good idea to defer to somebody who has actual working knowledge of managing a library.
Right.
I can't speak for her, but to me, that would be my immediate suspicion.
Under maybe a stick suggestion that you could probably provide some ideas for her to move forward on. So I think what the scope of this conversation is at this point is, and I think Skip is right, we need to either, use this asset for the city or then, maybe phase it out. I think I agree with this
If there's
suggestion.
not interest, I think it's a waste of our time and effort to keep it up. If there's no interest.
It'll be a waste of Scott's time too.
Right.
And, yeah, Ms. Scott has other things that she might be better spend her time on it.
But I love her, I mean, her energy is
I'd be
wonderful.
happy to have her shepherded if she wants to. And I'd be happy to talk to her about doing that. And she doesn't necessarily have to have a council appointment for it. The only thing about having a committee of some kind is to have the council be behind the library to establish a committee and try to put some people on it that various councilmen might know. And it might create some momentum that we don't have now.
She was actually
What do
here
you wanna do
twice
about that?
twice this week, maybe for an hour on occasion, just helping start stacking and sorting back there, so.
Can't hear
But,
you.
no, I was saying that Councilwoman Scott was here a couple times for about an hour on a couple occasions this week, just starting to stack and organize a bit. But if I recall, one meeting, Bernard offered up a family member who does library services.
That's who it was, yes.
Yeah, so we can check back with him as well.
Okay.
And
Maybe
then-
that family member doesn't know that he volunteered, but I think he can ask them.
And they'd also have a good idea about what the level of effort is that we would expend over time and whether it was worth it for us to go ahead and do that as well.
So to keep within the spirit of Skip's thought process here, I believe it would be a very good suggestion to have him bring it up at the council meeting and to hopefully maybe cue Ms. Scott into it ahead of time and let her
Yeah, I
get
think
involved.
if it's okay by you guys, what I'm thinking about doing, I'll talk to Miss Scott, see what her interest is, and talk to Mr. Udemeyer about his relative who may have some library experience, and then based on what they tell me, what they want to do, if they want to bring it up to council, we'll leave it with them.
Okay. That sounds reasonable.
Does that sound like a reasonable course?
Absolutely.
Then I'll make that motion then.
And I'll second it.
Okay. Any other discussion, Jim? favor? All right, thank you. Okay, item number 4, discussion of possible action on a streets and drainage committee and related matters. Skip, if you can take this one.
Okay.
This is a good idea.
I put this down for a couple of reasons. One is that Jack has taken an interest in the drainage issues and has done some work on possible grant information that may be related to drainage. The fact is that we don't really have a streets and drainage committee to operate with. And our streets and drainage committee was disbanded a year ago in December, I think it was. And if we're gonna proceed, then we need to have some focus and energy to kind of provide the momentum to get something done in council to proceed with one of the other projects or all the projects or none of the projects or to find financing or whatever. And I think the streets and drainage committee might be the appropriate vehicle to do that. What's your thoughts, Jack?
I agree, Skip. I think it's probably unfortunate that the streets and drainage committee is disbanded. But in any event,
I wasn't even aware of that it had been disbanded. That's unfortunate.
But anyway, yeah, given the issues we have, I mean, streets and drainage probably are the single main issues that we have to face with our city. The costs of these possible improvements are astronomical in the millions and millions of dollars, so it seems entirely appropriate that we have a citizen group helping out, looking after it, and trying to make something happen in communication with the council. And I'd be willing to help with that. I think you guys are probably going to ask me to chair it, but I'd be willing to help.
I have a quick question. So, as far as the drainage committee is concerned, what can we describe why, a little bit about its demise? That is, so was there something that is different today that we might be able to go ahead and do that was not that same thing a year ago? Go and form and maintain this committee. That is there something that is still happening today and now that is going to make maintaining a committee difficult? So I'm assuming that it was dismissed for some reason, and if this becomes perhaps partisan in its description right here, or hyper-partisan in its description, then perhaps we could avoid that and talk about it in a more appropriate venue than what we're doing here. But I'm kind of curious about that. I mean, what it is that caused its demise. We can describe that, or if that's not appropriate, then that's fine.
I'll go ahead and take that, Mark. It's a great question, and being heavily involved in kickstarting our streets, and because I served as the chairman of the streets committee, and then Douglas was serving as the chairman of the drainage committee until we combined them or we co-chaired them. I'm not sure you know the history of that, but that's something that we'll look forward to over time. And so having those committees at the time, we accomplished a mountain of work in a very short period of time, very concentrated effort. And it was definitely council driven too, which was good. We had the authority to move forward on things. So,
Excuse me, a quick question. So
yes.
you were executing this as a function of when you were here on council.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes. So that's what it needed, and in order to work with, number one, get the support of the city, and also bring in and get the support of the various, we'll call them vendors, i.e. contractors, and have the swagger to have some influence on these potential contractors and stuff to give us the best they could possibly do. The engineers, the whole gamut. It made good sense. And so we got a lot done. We did a lot of streets in a very short period of time, and moved forward on a lot of drainage projects in a very short period of time too. A lot of smaller drainage projects were knocked out. And so,
of course, the big ones are the ones, of course, with the press and the folks that get flushed every 5 times and that sort of stuff.
The big ones being, the ones that are
multi-millions, the mini zeros, right? Yeah.
And the big ones are the ones that are really affected by the issue we have.
It's the full depth.
The folks upstream, that of course, that are not managing their works correctly.
So
I've been a victim of that as well too,
Yeah.
and it is incredibly frustrating to deal with.
Very. and I've spoken on it many times, I'm sure people are blue in the face when I speak out on it. But to go into, you specifically asked the demise of it. Well, a lot of it started because of the allegations against Councilman Gregory, and that's public knowledge. And so there was, the truth or the non-truth of it. The point is there was some concerns with that. And so the mayor made the decision to disband the committee. Appropriately or appropriately so, I think that's not the question here. The fact that it was done. And there was some concerns. I did work with Douglas. I had my concerns with Douglas and on some things, and I did other things. And so
my hope is that somehow we can come up with a mechanism by which these committees right here are independent of personalities. And independent of political appointment and that sort of stuff, and they exist as a mechanism to execute citizen will here.
Let me finish, please. Let me finish. Okay, I want to convey the story.
Sure. Sorry for interrupting. I apologize.
Okay. So as we move forward, and as it was disbanded, it became at that point it moved back to a council function. I think the process, unfortunately, has considerably slowed. Especially the maintenance process that was involved. We've had changes of city managers. We've had a lot of things. We had an interim city manager for a period of time. All that negatively impacted the progress on our streets and our drainage.
So no committee plus churn equals nothing getting done for the most part.
Right. Let me finish. Okay. Okay. Well,
I'm understanding.
So now where we are at today. Okay. That's all figuratively water under the bridge at this point in time.
Hopefully low water.
Hopefully low water, yes. So what I was going to say is I've made some recommendations in the past, and that is that I do believe we should have a committee. I do believe it should be a council-driven committee, not a committee of us, kind of a subcommittee. And so, because it needs that level, it needs to have council participation on that committee also. Whether one or two members from council should be on that committee. And then it needs to be full of what I would deem subject matter experts. One of the things that we brought in the past is we've appointed people based on they're our friend or they're people that we know and we like and stuff. I completely disagree with that. I don't care if I like the person or not. They're strong in that subject. I'm going to bring them in. We do have a lot of engineers in this community. We have some drainage experts in this community. That would be wonderful to see.
I agree with you. I mean, that's the right way to do it.
Right.
Floodwaters don't care about personalities, right? They're going to come whatever.
They don't. We need people that can speak, that they can talk the talk, because this committee would not only have the impact internally here, but it would work out to more of a regional issue, which the MPO is part of, and then the Bear watershed, Bear
Regional.
Yeah, Bear Regional watershed.
Yep.
Right. They're the other 500-pound gorilla that controls the funds that feed in here too. And so we need somebody that can talk about that also. And it does require a technical person typically, along with political reinforcement, to be able to talk that talk. So
That sounds reasonable. Thanks for the explanation. I was just curious. I mean, I didn't want to stir up any old bad memories or anybody have a bad nightmare or anything, but I'm kind of curious. I mean, I was hoping that organizations or things like this would persist.
Well, it needs to come back again, and I think what you're driving at is something that Skip could take back to council to go ahead and say, hey, yes, we need to look at reestablishing the street drainage committee, but we need, most importantly, we need subject matter experts. If they're not an engineer or very technical in nature, I would not recommend them to be on this committee. I really strongly believe we need that type of individual, because these are very technical problems.
So I would respectfully disagree. I would think 2/3 technical and 1/3 just concerned folks right there. I think that you should still have folks that are just ordinary, guy off the street, Castle Hill citizen can also make some contributions as well too. Yeah, I mean that's
right.
Yeah, of course that's to be determined. I mean
well, again, with the approval of the CIP plan in the streets, you already have essentially your plan for the committee to review, because all the streets have been inventoried and the criteria set and the repair rehab identified. It's just looking at the need, because the final report, which I'll have up on the website, which is done, is $24 million in need for streets, and we're going to have about $3 million over that 5-year term based on estimated revenue, sales tax, digital billboard. So we're yielding 21 million. But the plan is there, and 10 million of that 24 million is full depth reconstruction work that needs to be done on the streets here in Castle Hills.
Thanks for taking that. That's the driver. That's some of the progress that has been made since Ryan has been our city manager is the framework is in place for, they can just take it and run basically. So.
And that's, I consider that phase one being complete, and phase two is, again, all of the drainage prioritized over 5 years with the actual dollar figure that's most accurate, which again, as we talked with council the other night, the drainage study is, when it was done in 2015, was about $7 million, and we're probably closer to just ballparking $11-12 million. So if you look at all infrastructure needs for Castle Hills, you're probably in the $36 million range. As I gave Councilman McCormick and other council members on Monday night a projection or a forecast of funds that shows if we were not to do anything based on our current funds and estimated revenue, we'd be at $5 million in 5 years. Well, you're still having that total yield of about 30-some million for all drainage and street needs in Castle Hills.
So there's a shortfall now. As part of the committee, one of the things that you still not looking at maybe encumbering some income that we have that doesn't impact tax dollars. And move some of that money forward to help get some of the work in quicker. Be a council decision, but it can be made as a recommendation to council if it makes sense. So that's one thing I would love to see.
And part of the other, again, in trying to forecast dollars, and if we move forward with some of the digital billboard projects, we'll be able to plug those dollars in, but there's still a large amount of funds needed that eventually the city may have to borrow down the road to get those needs done.
Skip, you've been awful quiet. Please comment.
Well, I just had a couple of thoughts. One is Mr. Sanderson's comment that ordinary citizens can make a contribution, I think is probably well taken, particularly in view of the fact that we already have an established plan for drainage, repairs to the streets and modifications for drainage purposes. And part of the function of this committee is going to be to set priorities on projects that we've already laid out. The streets plan, the drainage plan. We already know where the streets stack up. We already know what the drainage problems are and how to fix them. What we don't have is a priority system on which to do first and which to do later on and how to finance it. And in that context, the ordinary citizen might have some useful insights or some useful contributions to make. But I agree that it'd be helpful to have subject matter experts. As a practical matter, I suspect it's going to be difficult to get a full committee of all subject matter experts.
No,
and so I think that having ordinary citizens is a good idea.
I can answer questions about software when it comes to city stuff. It's like not very well. I can think of the record set. That's about it.
One thing in regard to that, all these subject matters that I'm recommending need to be Castle Hill citizens. I'm not saying you bring outside people in, but there's a lot of citizens here.
Oh, I agree.
And a good mix is appropriate,
yeah,
for sure. So,
I would
a lot of stuff
certainly
we're
catch some
talking
cities
about,
around here.
how to raise money and that sort of stuff, that's beyond the scope of our committee's charge. And it would be something that a subject matter committee in streets and drainage would be better equipped to address. So while there probably are a dozen ways to get there from here, it's not up to us to pick the route.
Sure.
And to answer Mr. Sanderson's question earlier, so the first year of the CIP calls for about $2 million of work. That's for the entire Handler project. That's at some point when council receives the bids, they can choose from which ones to do within that project if necessary, or push them forward. And then there's about 28 streets in there for the seal code, and then about 6 or 7 for mill and overlay. And so ultimately, when you do a 5-year CIP, you want to try to do as much full depth up front, because in year 6 and 7, when it's a rolling document on those streets that you had put that money, the big dollar money into putting the full depth projects, you're just coming back and putting sealant down to keep the integrity of those streets for 10 or 15 years. So you won't lose the street quicker coming back and putting money into it.
Just moving along, I'll make a motion that we recommend that the city council, that they establish a streets and drainage committee of Castle Hill citizens consisting largely of subject matter experts, and in particular, our projects of ordinary citizens to address the issues of drainage and prioritize, streets and drainage and prioritize projects. Determine what financing is appropriate.
And I'm going to second that.
I'll third it.
Okay.
The only comment I might add is it might, I don't know, we want to start defining who it is, the type of person that's going to be on this committee at this point, but we're going to do so. I would suggest, this is an implementation phase, this is an execution phase. As you guys said, the plan is in place. I think we need folks who know how to get stuff done and who know how to find it.
That's a really good point. Not only engineers, but also managers and operational folks here. That's
That's the only caveat I would add.
Yeah,
I agree with the motion, but I would add that.
I second it and wholeheartedly agree.
And Jack, typically when,
I interpret that as an amendment to, we recommended to the city council that they establish a streets and drainage committee consisting of citizens and subject matter experts, managers and people who are interested in developing a project to raise money and figure out how to finance it.
Please consider that.
And execute it as well, too, and to execute it. The final execution, the management of the project itself. Which in many cases, as engineers, we know that execution is sometimes a challenge when it comes to engineering projects of all types.
For various reasons.
For various reasons. Oh,
so Jack, like when you actually have the 5 years of the CIP and it's a rolling document, so every year, they prioritize or basically say, this isn't what you should be recommending as engineers to be doing. But also that CIP is put to bed every year when you do your adopted budget. So you lay in the funds, you identify those funds and make sure they're there for year 2, 3, 4, 5. And so the CIP each year is approved with the adoption of the budget.
Quick question for you. I'm sorry. I don't even know what a CIP is. Can you?
Capital improvements plan.
Capital improvements plan. Thank
Or
you.
program, this varies. But it's a way to itemize all your infrastructure projects, whether it's streets or drainage or sidewalks within a cities, and then prioritize over 5 years and then identify funds each year to.
Right.
I'm sorry.
What the CIP can't give us is where the money comes from.
Yes.
And so that's, I think, where this committee could be very helpful.
Well, that's what I said, where I gave it to council the other night that says,
Yeah.
here's how much we know we're gonna have over 5 years.
Right,
And so where we're at on the funds is because right now we have healthy streets,
right.
drainage and supplemental drainage funds, because basically we hadn't been tapping into those funds to do projects. But we have an annual revenue coming in each one of those funds.
Yeah, way less than what we need altogether.
Yeah.
But, so that's what where the committee would help.
Yeah.
By the priorities that Skip and John have been saying about. I think also identifying sources of funding
Yeah.
would be really helpful, such as the stuff we're getting into a little bit.
Well, typically, and I won't name the company, but I know a couple firms that have helped in different cities I worked in where they come in and they give you a financial plan, they lay out
Right.
your capacity and able to borrow.
Yeah.
The thing is, like I said the other night, is, right now we don't have an interest in sinking, but we will if we start borrowing, which will affect our M&L.
Yeah, and the reason it's sort of a hot button or a trigger button for me is that it's been a problem in the past for Castle Hills. Because as you know, we've had a couple of failed bond issues. So anyway, it's something that needs to be well thought out and well done.
Well, interesting
So we
enough,
don't fail again.
the CIP that was put together for us quite resembles the one done in Terrell Hills in 2012, 2013, the way it's laid out, structured. And they turned around quickly and approved a bond based on that document as the guide for the city to move forward with all the streets. Just-
So, I understand you want to have the Streets and Drainage Committee work with the CIP plan, just as far as streets and drainage are concerned, or do you want to combine those two into one subject?
Well, I would say that they would work directly with the CIP, the final plan, because the street side is done. I'll finish the drainage here soon, so you have a complete document for that Streets and Drainage Committee to work with every year when the streets or drainage projects are prioritized based on funds available when you adopt the budget. And right now, I mean, the first year, like I said to Ms. Sanderson, that's a recommended first year of projects that need to be done here, which our engineers recognize. But again, it's a fluid document. It can change, obviously based on funds or prioritization of streets. And the committee could do that.
What I was trying to get to was are we putting the CIP into the Streets and Drainage Committee? Or are we just telling them to work through the CIP?
No, I would say the Streets and Drainage Committee would be, that would be their tool or guide to work with moving forward for all the streets and all the drainage.
But their primary focus is on streets and drainage, and let's say the building, for example.
Oh, no, that's, the CIP will just be streets and drainage at that point. Facilities is another matter.
I think I had a motion.
I think we have a motion. Yes, we have a second with a, I guess, a seconded amendment, or we would call it a revised motion at this point. That's okay. And so,
I have been in another city where the CIP, our capital improvements plan, is pretty comprehensive, where, like Councilman McCormick says, it does take in facilities or other facilities of departments being built in the future. But right now, this would be just streets and drainage in this CIP for Castle Hills.
appropriately so, I think. So, okay, all in favor? Okay, approved unanimously. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Skip, for adding.
I could go ahead and throw myself on the ground and hold my breath and turn red and stuff, just to kind of give a little bit of extra drama here. Make it not so easy. He kept on complaining, it was easy, I was like, oh.
No, yeah, we did enough.
I can help out with the not easy part, right?
So we're good.
Okay, good, go.
Okay, agenda item number 5, report on contact, report on contact responsiveness to possible initiative on Castle Hills Chamber or Business Forum and new resident welcome reception. So at the meeting on, let me see here, when was it? That was the December 8th meeting. It was brought up as one of the agenda items to work with the business community to help, I guess, move forward what we could do as far as for new residents and what organizations within the community, i.e. the Women's Club, the Castle Hills, I won't say homeowners, I can't say that, the Castle Hills
Community organization.
Thank you. And what assistance that they could provide in working with the local businesses.
I think we could talk about like a packet or something that perhaps we could get, businesses to sponsor that we would send out to new residences, and, every 90 days we'd have a little dog and pony show and say, hi, we're Castle Hills and that kind of stuff. And it sounded like that was the general direction of that might have been taken.
You got a good point there.
Go ahead.
Mr. Rapley had mentioned that he's putting together an inventory of businesses for the city.
No, perfect.
And you'd also mentioned, Mr. Rapley, that at some point you wanted to contact these people, and you're going to send out a postcard or something, kind of check on their status or see how they were doing.
Yeah, business retention purposes in the community. I'm almost done with that list, and it would be where we just reach out to them, whether it's quarterly or maybe monthly. But
I want to check the tax roll as well too, just to make sure that they're paying.
Well, we have everything from our, everything's done by our certificate of occupancy that we have on our list.
Sorry for interrupting. Sir.
Oh, no problem. And so that would be a process where we would reach out to someone, on a quarterly basis if they wanted to meet, or if they need anything from the city, to contact us or discuss anything they want to do. And maybe there is a business here that's looking to expand or needs some help. We'd be sure to ask them to contact us if they
almost
need
no
it.
cost or zero cost to the city, we probably go and get businesses to sponsor that whole new resident packet. That would be an opportunity for them, because I believe that was something that we had where I grew up in Bunker Hill. When you moved in, you got like a little just a really simple 2-page folder, and it has some advertisements on it, and the city phone numbers and that sort of thing like that, introduce you to the mayor and the councilman.
Well, you can eventually, when this is inventory, when I'm done, and you could send it out asking them if they would like to be a part of some type of chamber or some type of organization in Castle Hills as far as our businesses to be a part of. Typically all chambers, they have dues from businesses in their community, and that's the retention portion of economic development in the community. But I wouldn't say we'd go that far for, businesses paying dues, but just more of, in the spirit of communication and businesses and growth in Castle Hills.
Let me ask that dirty question, if I may.
Ooh, I like this.
Is this within our purview? I mean, it's really nice. It's a nice idea and everything, but is this part of that MBO project?
Technically, probably not. But it is a project that provides some benefit to the city. And the deal is, we've already started considering it, unless you think you don't want to consider it because you think it's too far out of our purview.
Well, from my standpoint, I'm going to continue to do that regardless because we as a city need to have some type of retention mechanism for businesses in our community, so.
I'm happy to have, it's a good idea, I'm happy to help, I'm just afraid it's a distraction.
Let me comment, Jack. I think what we're seeing here is we're trying to tackle some issues that have been stalled or council is not able to move forward on, unfortunately. And I think Skip sees this committee as a way to get some of these things actually done. And so that's the
GSD.
I'm sorry?
GSD. I will not go and translate the.
So
I have to say, when we wrote the enabling legislation for the council to approve, it gave us the option of doing any project, whether it actually fell within the MPRFP parameters or not, and we could find a way to proceed either through a grant or other funds or without funds if we didn't need money, like with the Parks project. So I think we've got, I built in some flexibility. It's ambiguous enough that I think we could probably do a number of things with it. The question is, what do you think is worth doing and whether we should pursue it or not? I've mentioned this to Mr. Howell. He likes the idea a whole bunch and said if I couldn't get something done, I should contact him. I don't know if we can get anything done through council or not. I'm pretty sure we can get something done here. And then we can make a recommendation to council if they can choose to act on it or not if we want to do that. We can't go out and do it on our own. If we have, what we've got is the right to explore the possibility, to ask businesses if they're interested, to see if there's some group like the community organization, the women's club or whatever, which already has a welcome program, where we could set up something where we get some economic benefit from letting our businesses be well known to our new residents through a reception or something of that sort. And I think that there's an economic development project, and for that purpose, I think it's probably worth doing. The question is whether you agree or not.
Ultimately, these things can also help generate extra tax income as well too, which is kind of what we're all about. And the money is going to be needed for many of the things that we are directly charged with anyhow. So, somehow scaring up extra funds by whatever means, it seems like a reasonable approach. It might only be a couple of dollars, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
The point is, we have to go back to council to get the approval on pretty much everything we do anyway. So, in the end, if the council approves it, then that is an acknowledgement that we have the right to look at it.
I mean, did you want to make a movement to go ahead and discard it?
No, not at all. I think it's something that's of great value.
Okay.
I just wasn't us that should be pursuing it, but Skip's got enough flexibility in the definition of what we do, then it's fine.
Okay, thank you, Jack. So a couple of things that were brought up, if I recall properly, or recall correctly, when we were discussing this previously, was reaching out to the community organization, also to the women's club, like I said earlier. Unfortunately, I haven't had much success. I reached out to John, and he's very busy now that he's out of town with his new job. And I believe Anna's been taking over a lot of the duties in the community organization. And I have not talked to anybody in the women's club as of yet, as far as working with them to see what they can do. So I guess right now we're kind of at a crossroads as far as what we want to work on next in this, or what we want to pursue, or formally go to one of the meetings that they're having to see if what they can help out with.
John, perhaps an inversion of that. Perhaps we could give out an invitation for leaders and interested members of those organizations to come here during our next meeting and say, hey, come on over here and let's exchange some ideas. Let's talk a little bit. We already have a pretty established meeting schedule right here, and we're advertising on a regular basis.
Right.
I don't know if we actually made it to the scroll here on the digital sign. I don't know if we've done that yet. So, for our particular meeting, are we advertising the city functions on the big signs?
Just the passports right now, but
Okay,
we can get
okay.
the others. I mean, we have a certain amount of advertising space for events for the city.
So we've been doing that then?
For passports, yes.
Oh, for passports, okay.
Yeah, for like this group, we've had it on the website,
Well,
next door, Facebook. so-
This and other groups, I mean, it's not
Yeah.
just us, maybe if we could have a little bit of scroll time here, just not much, so hey.
Well,
show
however
up
we
for
do,
us.
if we were to formalize something like this, we would definitely be able to advertise it on the digital billboards.
Okay. Because I think that we're allocated a specific amount every month then for the city's usage then, is that correct?
Oh, yeah, we have time and certain amount of space.
Okay,
It's-
okay, cool.
So let me-
That's how that's why when you're up there and you see the big yellow sign that says passports, so we've been utilizing our time.
If I can put Mark's suggestion in form of a motion, that would be to invite the members of the Castle Hills Organization and Women's Club to the next meeting for the initiative on the Castle Hills Chamber of Commerce idea and also business forum.
I will second that.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? Still?
I
Okay.
mean, it's somewhere to start, right? I mean, that's,
Okay, all in favor? All right.
What was the first group? You said who? I'm sorry?
The
Castle Hills.
Castle Hills Community Organization
Oh, okay.
and the Women's Club.
the old HOA, so I think it was a.
Let me just mention that I had suggested, I know once at least personally, so I reached out to Juan, and as I feared, he's covered up at this point. He's also been promoted. He's now branch manager of PG&T on Jones Northburg and 410. But he's going to introduce me to the manager here in Castle Hills. And so perhaps that young lady will be help me with that. So I'll follow up on that.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, as follow-up, Mr. Rapley, are you planning on sending out something to the business community when you get your list finished?
Yes.
Is it possible you'd be able to mention to them the possibility or to survey them on their interest in a forum or business council of some kind?
About initiating this?
Yeah,
Or-
well, we were talking, our whole point is to touch base and see if there's interest.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if in your first mail out to the business community,
I see.
you could ask them if they have an interest in.
Sure, that's possible.
Or Chamber of Commerce or something of that sort.
Absolutely.
So I have a quick suggestion, perhaps during this mailing right here, we actually fix a date for one of our future meetings right here to invite businesses to come in here. And then we can start the process of at least spinning this thing off and giving it to somebody else, as well as it's the HCO and the, what was the other one? Was it Women's Club, I think it was? Yeah. And because these are kind of, embedded community organizations right here, and see if something organic happens. So maybe not necessarily something that we would generally direct ourselves, but see if we can kind of get them together to see if there is an organic growth of interest for them to go ahead and proceed forward.
And if we do that, I would suggest we do it
Good
during,
ideas come here and.
I would suggest during the weekday though, if we do
Yeah.
that.
It may make some sense for Brian to bring this back, have it ready to go. We review it at the next meeting, along with a representative from the Women's Club and the Castle Hills Community Organization, if they can be here.
Mhm.
And at that point, it gets sent out to the members, or to the businesses. Because as she said, you'll be ready at that point in time, correct?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
And we
It's a matter
potentially
of,
could come up with a targeted date, which would be an agreement with the various organizations for everybody to get together.
At our next meeting.
Yeah.
one of the things I have is the list. I just need to verify who's like the main point of contact to send these letters to right now. So I'm having to go and, because they may have a name tied with the CFO, but, who's the actual manager or who's running the organization in this particular business. That's what I need to just authenticate and address the letter to at that point.
Maybe just some of Jack's point here, and I don't want to speak for Jack, but I mean, it's a lot of the stuff we may put to, at least, we can husband, if you will, some of these organizations and put them together and see what happens. We don't necessarily have to be the ones that are doing the the direction, if you will, and see if there's something more organic which is going to happen. And those folks can go out and do and execute in a way that perhaps we might not be able to, given their knowledge and understanding of the various issues and being businessmen and that sort of thing.
Oh, that's a great idea. Okay, I was taking notes.
Sorry if I ramble on a bit here, but
Oh, no,
I'm really good at that.
I'm trying to catch these ideas, so that's good.
Well, and I would have to say that probably, in my opinion, that there would be some businesses who may expand or want to expand or didn't know how
Absolutely.
to contact someone, and that's kind of a good conduit to start.
And, folks, if the business don't know about what we're trying to do right here, then, we perhaps might give them additional reasons to expand here in Castle Hills, potentially, increase the tax base for what the current business, what our current business load is.
And I think you're right, that it would give them potentially also a voice for if we have a draconian ordinance or something that we think is going to impact business in a negative way, it would give them a voice to come back to say, yeah, the business alliance or whatever.
Certainly, everybody should have representation and be able to go ahead and speak their mind during committees or council meetings and have folks that have specialized knowledge about their concerns.
Right, most businesses are so busy running their business, it's hard for them to even.
They're trying to make payroll, that's
Every month,
yeah,
every 2
yeah,
weeks.
every month, every 2 weeks, exactly.
Like, for
So,
example,
that's,
signs.
We can potentially help them out, that's not a bad thing.
We need to be, and I've always said the viewpoint, and it's just my personal, and we need to be business friendly as a community. I mean, within reason, we need to be business friendly, and I think we have.
And it's the within reason right there that I wholeheartedly agree with, yes.
And that's what typically chambers do. They lead the charge for businesses when certain ordinances are coming in front of cities for review, and that's kind of their role to help get the businesses aligned and speak on one issue in particular, how it addresses or impacts the business.
Certainly, everybody should have the opportunity to express themselves.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward. We had a really good discussion on that. So agenda item number 6 will be discussion and possible action on bus traffic congestion study and related matters. And that was something that was Skip and also I think Mark, y'all were gearing up to move forward.
Oh, we had a grand old time, yes.
Hope you had a sunny day.
Yeah, really.
To you in my notes with regard to your report to the council, we have put together a little format for taking statistics with regard to bus stops and their impact on traffic. In my preliminary review, when I was trying to figure out how to make this thing work, it appears to me that we're probably not going to get a whole bunch of traction on the bus stops themselves. My observations are to the effect that they're pretty much a non-factor in the congestion problem.
At least the days that we personally observe right here.
Although I haven't been there every day by any means, but we spent several hours out there. Mark and I spent a couple hours out last week looking at it. And for the most part, the buses stop for a very short period of time. There are 2 corners where they're a problem. The one on the northbound side of Jackson Keller and the one on the northeast or northwestbound side.
On Jackson Keller. West Avenue.
West Avenue,
Oh,
sorry, the northbound side of West Avenue, just south of Jackson Keller. That stop is a little bit of a problem. And the one on the northwestbound side of Jackson Keller, going across west, is a little bit of a problem, but primarily because there's no left turn lane and there's no right turn lane there. So people turning left have to stop and wait for traffic to clear or a signal to be available for them to turn left. And people waiting behind the bus at the light have to wait for the bus to clear before they can turn right or proceed across the intersection.
Yeah,
So for that,
JK doing 2 lanes at that point, correct?
it's 2 lanes each direction.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
2 lanes wide, but there's no left turn lane and no right turn lane. There is space for a right turn lane on the property there between the parking lot of HEB and the corner itself, and so that's a possibility. The other place where a right turn lane might be helpful would be the corner of west northbound turning onto 410 eastbound access road. There is space there probably for a turn lane. There are 3 telephone poles or light poles there that would have to be moved in order to be able to do that. But that lane is open there's a left turn lane there all the way from the corner of Jackson Keller past HEB, and then there's a little, that right turn lane disappears, where that, little corner is where we have the 100-year-old oak tree. So, it's possible that you could put one in there. It's something we have to look at. I think we need to do further research on the effects of the buses in order to be sure that we haven't missed something. But while we're there, we're looking at other things as well, and that's the two things that we're looking at. Possible turn lane from Jackson Keller northwestbound onto West Avenue, and from West Avenue onto 410 eastbound.
And certainly at least one time I observed, on 2 occasions near accidents over those couple hours there from people making the suicide rush across the street from west into the HEB parking lot and vice versa. That only, and especially the combination of partially functioning vehicles and bad traffic conditions eventually will go ahead and cause some trouble. I'm wondering if there's a way, do we have access to accidents and accident rates in those particular areas there?
On the MPO website is an interactive map system, which shows all the accidents that have occurred statewide. You can go on there and find anything you want. You can go to a particular intersection, find any accident, any individual accident is available for review at that website. It's in 2 places on the MPO website. It's in the library and the interactive map system, and then there's another one, I think, in plant for the interactive map system.
Yeah, I wonder, and I have no idea if it's the case, but I suspect that accident rates will increase on paycheck days, on the 15th and last of the month.
You can break it out by time of day. You can break it out by day of the week. So any of that is available on the interactive map system. And
Great idea. Okay.
You can study the accidents by vehicle type, whether there were injuries or no injuries. You can break it out in any number of ways, and it's almost infinitely variable what you can arrive at. But you can look at any particular intersection. You can look at any time of day, any day of the week, any day of the year, and find that information from, I think it's 1916 on back. 2016 on back. They may have 2017 on that, I'm not sure yet.
It wasn't on them last
I
time.
think last time it was 2016 where it started, and going back from here. But that information is available on the website. You can go and look at it and break it out any way you want to. By the way, we've got a couple of people coming in for passports this morning.
Okay.
Can I make a point? The other day, Mr. Harada, Rick and I were out there at that intersection. We were out checking out some,
Hold on a second. What's the intersection?
the intersection of Jackson Keller and West there, next to the HE.
Okay.
So we were going out because originally, Rick had been asking me, since I got here, if that bus pad was a part of the scope of all the bus pads. And so I contacted the folks at V and said, please make sure that's a part of it, and they confirmed, and please try to do that first because it was really tearing up the asphalt.
That's a JK and West Avenue is a San Antonio Street, Castle Hill Street.
Okay, in front of, if you're looking at the street, and I guess I can get a map.
West Avenue, then yes.
You're on Jackson Keller.
From Jackson Keller, take a right.
Yeah, in front of so if you're in front of the HEB, okay, in front of Burger King right there, where the bus pad,
That's West Avenue.
before I'm sorry, West Avenue, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, just clarify.
Thank you.
West Avenue. So Rick was saying that from the intersection on West to the bus pad was TxDOT. Once you get past the bus pad in front of HEB and Burger King down to the intersection, that's the responsibility of Castle Hills. And
How do they determine that? That seems like a purely arbitrary line.
it's the distance from, it's a certain amount of feet in distance from the intersection itself that's TxDOT responsibility, and
Right.
those things are covered under, all cities participate in or have an agreement with TxDOT for, they call it, for maintenance and so on. It kind of outlines those with their boundaries and so on, who's responsible. but there's a certain distance from that intersection because it's TxDOT. And so, but beyond that, we were out there the other day, and so we were looking at, just as you get past the bus pad, the asphalt's pretty torn up, you know, in front of Burger King to that intersection.
Right.
And someone had asked me about the crosswalk there too. So I've asked Rick to get a quote to do some mill and overlay improvements, and also to do the crosswalk again and the delineation for the right turn lane off west. And so he's going to get those quotes. So just to,
Yeah, I think, Mark, just so you know, that came up on the radar when I was running the streets, and we were working with B at the time, so we held off on that until the bus path was done before we moved forward on that. We just did some minor repairing, some of that cold patch on there, so
that was the worst. That was the worst one. I mean, that was the worst one because Rick brought it to my attention, and I just confirmed with Via early on to say, hey, make sure you're doing this one because it's in pretty bad shape. So, which they did.
So let's.
But I just want to clarify the responsibility that portion is ours, and we're going to be someone had mentioned to me, I don't know if it was Bernard or somebody else, and asked about that crosswalk, which is our responsibility. So we're going to go ahead and move forward and get some quotes to improve the asphalt in that little corridor, and of course do the restriping and crosswalk because that's our responsibility. Because if you look across the street, the crosswalk is there, and that's City of San Antonio.
Just so we can kind of move forward, Mr. Sanderson and I will continue to do the studies on the bus traffic intersections that we've been discussing at Jackson, Keller West, and 410. And we'll hopefully have something more useful by the next meeting of this committee.
We're thinking about, I believe, potentially, finding like a Friday afternoon that would be, close to pay periods and stuff like that, to see if we can, look at, a more, I guess, a maximum traffic situation.
I'd like to expand just a second on this before we move forward, and that is in regards to what was discussed when I shared with the council the intersection as you approach 410 on West Avenue and the corner that has the 3 poles that we're talking about. Goes from 3 lanes back to 2 lanes, and so what I think we're at on that right now is, and this is just my opinion, I'd like to have a discussion on, is we have a deadline rapidly approaching to where we're not going to be able to participate in MPO if we don't get this stuff done.
First of April.
First of April, right, and that's tomorrow, essentially.
Almost.
And so, we need to get these forms, we need to get that sheet filled out like we've done previously. I'd like to see if we can actually formally task to get that done. But there's also some backup data that they're going to want on that, and I think you've seen those forms.
I've got
And so, okay, and so there's some data that we need to get in there, at least to get this thing properly presented. And so what I'm asking for is either whether we can bring in, and I think Mr. Gregory, when I commented on it, he was very pro, bring in some of the resources necessary to help get that thing properly filled out and get it submitted to MPO for that intersection. I'm talking specifically that intersection. Now, we know it's a terrible intersection. We all know it, we just don't necessarily have the good narration to present it as of yet. And so, again, this is for discussion. I just want to move that process forward so we can take advantage of it. Because not only do we got to do Castle Hill, we also got to involve TxDOT. If that portion, a vast portion of that turn lane will be TxDOT's property.
So were you thinking perhaps potentially appointing a subcommittee whose job would be to go ahead, or use the committee as a whole, to go ahead and actually sit down and grab the right people and start filling out that form at a particular day, next Saturday at 10 o'clock at this place or whatever? Do you want to get really specific about that and start pulling people in sooner rather than later, or?
Well, my nature on that is what we did previously. We brought in one of the standby engineers, and they went ahead and shepherded that process to get the forms filled out so we could present it to the MPO. And so, again, that's what we did previously, so that's my experience, and that's what I would know to do forward is to go ahead and spend a few dollars, just get the time to get that form filled out.
This is a silly question right here, but so So this form that we did last time, this approach we did at work, did we get money for it? Or
We did not.
So here's my suggestion, and it's kind
It
of
was,
a,
well, let me say, it was accepted, but it was unfunded. And so, and that all boils down to, they got lots of other things going out there. I do think that this, and it was mainly, we were mainly focusing on sidewalks and some improvements within Castle Hills.
Sure.
This to me can rise to a higher level, and it's not gonna have some of the, there wasn't pushback on the others, it just, there was just not they just didn't have the wherewithal to move forward on it.
here's my rather pragmatic proposal, it's going to fake it till you make it proposal, and that is, can we find a copy of a proposal which has been funded? In an attempt to go and perhaps model that good effect in execution, right, along with utilizing this volunteer, this engineer to fill the form out. Again, I know very little about this process right here, and I make no bones about that. But for my thought process is if a particular approach didn't get money, I mean, even though it was accepted but it didn't get money, what is it we can do to go ahead and close that gap? Let's go ahead and find a particular approach or a series of philosophies or mechanisms that actually did get execution.
The forms are fairly specific and ask for very, very specific responses. There's not a lot of time or place in the forms to polish up like an essay where you're making a college application, to polish something up and make it look better than somebody else's because of your flowery use of words or whatever. You just can't do that with the forms they provided for us. They're very specific, very limited responses, kind of like true or false.
And very technical.
And they're very technical. And they have specific things they're looking for. Like, for example, in the congestion management air quality setting, they're looking for reducing congestion or reducing problems with air quality, emissions, time standing at idle, for example, are things that we could maybe polish up to provide a better outcome than we could with the others. But according to Ms. Geiger, the forms for the applications that we made previously are available, that you can see them on the site. I have not gone to look at them because I do not think that a study having to do with sidewalks and bicycle lanes and whatnot is going to be terribly relevant to a study involving traffic congestion and traffic flow. One of the issues in this particular program is that one of the things that they have restricted is that simply increasing the capacity of the streets, a project which purports only to increase street capacity, is not subject to this particular RFP. So we have to find a way to speed traffic flow or reduce congestion or reduce standing time. And I think we can do that with the things that we're looking at right now.
Okay,
But I
gotcha.
don't think it's going to help us a whole bunch to go look at our other applications to see if we can make an improvement on what they put in those applications because the forms are so specific. And there's not a lot of room for, they're not going to appreciate the Gettysburg Address as opposed to Gurdjieff and Uspensky, for example.
Thank you, Stephen. So, Mark, did that address the thought?
Yeah, I was wondering about it because, like, in my line of business, we also do some contract submissions quite a bit to the government and feds, and there was a little more room to do the Gettysburg Address for.
Yeah.
And so be able to go ahead and be a little more inventive on how you might go ahead and convince folks to go ahead and go with your particular proposal or response from an RFP. So it sounds like this right here is a bit more strident or a bit more structured in its
Very
effect.
structured indeed. And if you want to go look at the MPO's website, Alamo Area MPO .org/CMAQ has the outline, all the forms, all the evaluation stuff is available there on the website through links, and you can look at all the forms and see what they're asking for.
Wow. Okay.
And
Interesting.
So, if I may, I was kind of on point here to see what we could do to get some help and to get these forms properly filled out. Whether to work with this very simple modeling to look at the impact on congestion or standing time may be appropriate. There's lots of simple tools out there that you can utilize.
They provided tools, they provided tools on that specific subject.
So this is where we're at, and this is open for discussion. If I had my brothers, I would say I would implore to get the usage of more of an expert to help us get this thing done and moving forward, because we're, as a committee, we're really not equipped to what needs to be done from this point.
Let me move that along then. Mr. Rapley, John has suggested that we might want to bring in one of our on-demand engineers to look at this. And the question I have is, do we have funds available to do that, or is this something we need to go back to the council for?
Councilman, we have engineering funds dedicated to our operating budget. So I would assume we could use that. I could ask one of our on-demand engineers to review and look at this for the committee, because we do have budgeted funds. We roughly budget about $36,000 a year for on-demand engineering work.
And is that available for something like this?
I believe so, in anticipation of us as a city applying for one of the projects.
Okay.
I don't see a problem with it.
Further follow-up, can you check with one of your on-demand engineers, somebody that you think would be appropriate for this kind of a question? See when they might be available, and I'll make an effort to coordinate a date and time for us to get together with that guy.
Yeah, and I know one particular engineering firm that we have not, we have been using them because they're more orientated towards maybe traffic and other, we've been using RPS because they've been, again, they have our data, they've done our master drainage study, they're kind of intimate knowledge of streets and drainage in Castle Hills, but we do have another one that has a little more expertise in that area, and I will engage them to see what they can do for us.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Then I'll make that in the form of a motion that we ask Mr. Rapley to obtain, see if he can obtain help from an engineering firm with traffic expertise. And we set up a time to meet with that person to discuss the MPO project.
Let me, if I may, ask you to adjust it to study the installation of a turning lane at northbound West Avenue and Loop 410.
Northwest what?
And what about,
Northbound West Avenue at Loop 410.
and also then the northwest bound lane in Jackson Color to West Avenue?
Absolutely, unfortunately, that's a city of San Antonio street, and so I don't know if we have a.
Well, the thing about it,
I think it's worth asking the question.
It's worth asking the question.
Absolutely.
And we don't have to put an in for this. We can coordinate with San Antonio, for example, or coordinate with the MPO. Let them coordinate with San Antonio.
The land that would be used for that would be wholly within Castle Hills, though, right?
We have to deed it over, correct? Deed the easement.
So there would be certain are involved there.
I think the easy way is to, again, engage one of our traffic engineers to study that corridor and then pass it on to San Antonio to say, as part of our study, we need y'all to look at this as well for assistance.
Yeah.
So I'm going to second Skip's motion. Any other discussion on that? Nope. Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Brian, any questions?
Nope, got it.
Okay, thank you, Skip. Thank you for letting me go off on my concerns here. Okay, agenda item. We went through several items on agenda item number 6. To move forward to agenda item number 7, discussion of possible action on MPO training for congestion management and air quality projects. Skip has brought this up several times in the past and to council, and we'll go ahead and move it.
I'll point out that we have, as yet, no scheduled training date. I checked this week with the MPO website, and I sent an email to Ms. Geiger, and they have not had a response. So there apparently is no scheduled date yet for this training. It's half a day, both sessions, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, same day, but I don't know what day it's going to be. So right now, there's nothing much we can do about that, except that I would plan to go. I would like at least one other person to plan to go as well.
Let me make a good go for my personal. But before I do that, I'd like to go ahead and table this to the next meeting. Skip until we hear back from Ms. Geiger on this.
Okay.
You guys-
I'll reach out to them as
The
well.
odds are it'll come up before our next meeting. The training.
Oh, really?
Should come up before our next meeting.
Okay.
So I move to designate both of y'all as our representatives here for that training, and if y'all so volunteer, and if it comes up, go ahead and go. Make it that simple.
Thanks, John. You've done it again.
No, thank you, Mark. He's just logical progression here.
No?
So, all right, that sounds fine, Mark. I'm good with that.
Okay, we gonna vote on
We'll take the training when it comes.
Okay, do you want us to, who's seconding it, and then we vote?
I'll second it.
Okay, here we go.
it? Passing it.
All right.
It seems logical, I mean, you're familiar as an engineer with this sort of thing, so I mean, it's a logical course.
Discussion and possible, correction. Agenda item number 8, discussion and possible action on attending a grant writing course.
Interesting.
Okay, there's one scheduled on February 11th and 12th. It's 2 days. The city can pay for attendance at this. It'd be good if somebody, I would like to go, I'm planning on going, I'll pay my own way, but it'd be good if somebody else on the council would go. I think I talked to Jack about it, and he's indicated that he may be able to go despite the fact that I think that occurs on his birthday.
No, it's later than my birthday.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be home.
Well, then you got no excuse, man.
Jack, if you take it, I have no conflict, so if you would take it, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll take it.
Hey, Mark?
Oh, I'll second that.
Is that a motion? We got a motion. and a
I say
second.
that's a motion.
Yeah, I'll first accept.
Okay.
So we'll have, Skip and Jack will recommend you to attend the grant writing course.
Yeah.
All in favor? Okay, thank you.
And obviously you'll pass on the information, Skip, on the time, place, and all that.
Yes.
Y'all can give us a,
Who's that? Skip and Jack
a little
will attend?
class then, huh?
That's
Cool.
correct. Right.
Yeah, in theory.
Yeah, in theory, right.
Okay, agenda item number 9, discussion and possible action on new traffic information from the police department. I personally have not reached out to Johnny since he made his last, part of his presentation. I don't know if we need any additional traffic information at this point in time. I'd say this agenda just needs to be closed and move on. Any discussion on this?
So my only question is that, so some of to the thing that we're concerned about is the movement of traffic on West Road and Jackson Keller. Would we have the opportunity as a city to be able to actually do traffic count or any kind of analysis ourselves on that segment of road?
I think probably TxDOT has already got that information, and there probably is some information on the interactive map.
Okay.
I can follow up on that and ask the question.
Yeah, I mean, if we can't get that information, it'd be nice to know who we can get it from. Because, I mean, that's kind of near and dear to our heart right now is, how are we going to go ahead and, continue to go ahead and, reinforce the case that we need some movement on that intersection, both intersections.
Yeah, just to comment on that. I mean, that is on that model that they put together, and it feeds into that they were talking about reconfiguring 410 at that point.
Yeah.
And so I actually saw the model that they had together on that. But my hope is that we bring the engineering consultant in, and they would be able to grab the information, and utilize that. And
They would need a lot of folks
All
here to
right,
have that
so-
information. Yeah.
So, yes.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move forward. I think we're done with that agenda item. Okay, agenda item number 10, discuss new ideas and accept input from the public. These ideas are related to MPO projects. We do have a member from the public attending, so I'm very grateful to see that. Mr. Paul, do you have any ideas or thoughts that you would like to bring forward? Had a chance to see our discussion and anything that you would be appropriate.
Could I address a couple of things that y'all went over?
Sure.
Absolutely. Do that.
What gets lost sometimes in the conversation?
Put it in the mic.
Mike.
We are live.
We are live, okay, we're live.
Thank you.
And John, you can correct me, you're the engineer. We have 3 levels of streets in our city. We have those that are fixed in pretty good shape. We have the mid-level, and then we have those that need full depth. And about a year ago, or a year and a half before you left the committee, I believe you all had a good 5-year plan proposal to move ahead on some of the middle streets.
Right. We did.
Because it took a whole lot more money for the redneck streets.
Right.
Plus, let's take, for example, the streets in the estates. They need sealing that would protect what was put down. Reclamation, I know a couple of people complained about it, but the reality is it did what it was supposed to do. And we have failed by not getting, we were supposed to within 4 or 5 years get those things sealed. If we got them sealed, that would be a great protection to move it forward. I call those the Class A streets. Class B streets, like I said, they could do, the middle and overlay. And the Class C streets are like where I live, they're gone. And so I think if you concentrate on helping the middle streets as well as the sealing on the good streets, the key is to get it before they get as bad as my street or Cotillion or some of the other streets. And to me, I haven't seen that conversation yet. Or maybe it's been forgotten, or maybe it is. We got CIP, we got MPO, we're going to have the street committee. I just hope it all pulls itself together. And I said one more thing about the MPO meeting last year. I think, John, did you go with?
Yes, I did.
You and me and Rick. I'd love to see y'all go back and talk to Rick again. He's a wealth of knowledge for this city, and we need to take advantage of it. But he had a good proposal. He had 2 proposals. One was for West Avenue, and one was for honeysuckle between here and 410. Widen it and put sidewalks for the school. That was the impetus of making it happen and doing the whole thing around that area. I would go back to Claus, not to have him do anything north, but make sure to say, why did it fail? Was there too many on the project? Was there not enough money? But I would get as much information as possible on that type of thing before we move forward. That's just my suggestion.
Thank you. Let me answer you as far as in regards to the honeysuckle and the West Avenue, the crosswalks that were in the bike lanes that we were looking at. Janine Dagger was here, and so it was accepted and into the program. It was one of the unfortunate items that just wasn't funded, and so it didn't necessarily fail. It just didn't do anything.
Correct. Yeah, so it was a good program. The question becomes, why did it fail? And possibly our engineer or maybe Rick would know the answer to that. The other thing that I hear a lot of conversation from people for discussions and different things. Well, does TxDOT own West Avenue? No, they don't. They owned West Avenue 20 plus years ago. They agreed to resurface and fix it and all that, and then they would be happy to give it to us. And apparently we were happy to accept it. So now West Avenue is, of course, our problem, unfortunately. Thank you.
Beware of government agents who carry gifts.
Frank, before you go, is there anything one thing we struggle for is new and relevant ideas that are NPO-related ideas, and I appreciate you bringing up some of the history. Is there anything that
I haven't studied it, I'd be speaking without proper knowledge.
Good answer.
That would be right.
Unfair question.
I'm sure I could study it, but, one of the things that I found interesting, I was involved with VIA when they agreed to pay us $380,000 to help do some things.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest complaint at the time with VIA, and then because of problems and issues, as you well know, between city personnel and a couple of people, they needed to fix those bus pads because they messed them up. In my opinion, I was finding that they still owed us the additional money because those bus pads were not anything that recreated. They weren't giving us anything that they didn't need to do and owe us anyway.
Great.
That was my point. So I don't know where you go with that. I don't know how much money's left, I don't know what's been done. That's just,
I believe what they've done today has consumed the money that was allocated, and so those bus pads, I mean, because it does stop the rattling of the pavement, and as the buses are hitting their brakes and all that.
but they have to do that everywhere in the whole metro area.
They
and
have.
they have problems, and
They
that's.
found, and they found their funding.
But that's just my memory, sometimes it gets a little lapse.
Right.
Mr. Squire, let me address a few things, in particular on Via and West Avenue and then Honeysuckle here. When I came here in February of last year, this project was mentioned to me, especially about West Avenue. What I did was look into where Via was, and I think there was like $400,000 they were going to do with bus pads and shelters and so on. And I think that's the work they've been doing on West Avenue. My point was when Rick and I talked about this early on when I got here, we didn't know where Via was at the time. And so we had the contractor coming in May, June, or July of this past year to do cooperative work he was doing for Bexar County and City of San Antonio, and then he had West Avenue. But I wasn't about to do any work on West Avenue until those bus pads were put in, because I wouldn't last very long if I had the work done and then Via comes in and tears up those bus pads, So, coordination efforts, I want to make sure that those were in first from that standpoint. Now, the money that was budgeted from Via was the bus pads and certain shelter locations. Now, 2 property owners didn't want shelter, so, I mean, we could go back to Via and say, is there other areas we could put those shelters in? Because, in particular, 2 said we don't want them on our property, which were budgeted in those funds. So that's a possibility. And now that those are in, we could look at doing the seal coat for West Avenue and striping that needs to be done now that those bus pads are in. As far as Honeysuckle,
So West Avenue's done?
as far as I know, they're done. I think they're wrapping up on maybe 1 or 2 locations for the bus pads itself.
Okay.
And then they're going to be completely done. And then that's when we can look at a possibility, because that same contractor who does, I think the city went in maybe a year or 2 ago with cooperatively with Bexar County, and so they're doing work at Bexar County, City of San Antonio. So we were able to get that guy to come in and do West Avenue at a certain rate, which was a good thing. We can revisit with him at some point with council.
I take it the new contract, they still have a tag along clause, so we can utilize their contract?
I believe so. He's already asking if we're interested this year when he's back in June or July about the possibility.
Okay. Now, you work with Tony over at Bexar County, correct? Tony Vasquez or Renee Green, or who you work with?
I've met Renee,
Okay.
but I don't know Tony particularly, but
Tony works for Renee.
Yeah.
He's a
he's in the
he's a
Public Works.
guy, so, yeah.
But as far as, so in Honeysuckle, as he mentioned it, Mr. Harada had brought to me about possibly improving Honeysuckle with moving in sort of a queue lane for the school. So as we talked about putting sidewalks down from where there's an existing sidewalk to Honeysuckle down to the playground, there was thoughts, he was telling me about putting in a queue lane so cars could come in, drop off, or pick up, and then
That was part of that MPO plan, was to widen it to allow that, so you didn't.
and he mentioned that to me, and I just told him, we're actually meeting with NISD this week in regards to the sidewalks with the construction folks, and I mean, if that's something we can look at, but I'm not sure how NISD feels about that. They'd probably have to come up with a majority of the dollars for that right now. It's a good idea in order to not obstruct cars on Honeysuckle, but it's a matter of cost.
Actually, you see the cars and the buses and the pedestrians, it's a very dangerous situation that fortunately we haven't had any incidences on, but still.
And all we ever discussed was just putting sidewalks down to connect at the end of Honeysuckle and 410.
But my
So-
concern, the reason we pushed that before is that if you have an event and fire trucks have to get out and that area is full northbound.
I agree.
And you got people on the southbound side that are pulled over too, you have a very hard time getting an emergency vehicle through there. And so that's why that was one of the big concerns, because that's a main artery they use to get outside.
And that's something, when Rick and I were out about looking at things, especially over there on West the other day, we talked about that. So, like I said, we have a meeting with the construction folks from
We
NISD.
need to kind of move along. This is off topic, sort
So-
of. I do have one other item to bring up under new ideas, and that is something that I left off the agenda apparently on this one. We need to talk at some point about about whatever we're going to set up for rules for attendance and participation in the committee. We can't do any further than me bringing it up at the moment. But the situation for the council is that if somebody misses 3 consecutive meetings, which are not excused for medical reasons or by previous arrangement through the council or through previous notice to the council, that position is vacant. And the council then is in the position of appointing someone new to fill that particular slot on the city council. I think our committee probably ought to have something similar. And I have had some email correspondence with some of the folks. Ms. Garza has indicated that she's not going to be able to participate further in the committees because of her commitments to her family and their situation, which I understand perfectly. And I think that her priorities are exactly right. In other cases, I haven't had any communication from folks, and I think we're going to have to address that certainly in our next meeting at the latest. It's on the agenda for the Parks Commission too, but we'll talk about it later.
Thank you, Steve.
A quick question just about this. So is this something that the committee would take care of, or is this something you're going to present to the council as a rule? I wasn't really clear on that, sorry.
Well, we're not really supposed to discuss the issue, but I will address that particular question. This committee, along with the Parks Commission, both set their own procedures and rules. So we don't, in my opinion, we don't need to go back to the council. Although if we want to go back to the council and advise them one of their appointees has withdrawn and see if they want to appoint somebody else, I think we can certainly do that. We can acknowledge the fact that one of our members has withdrawn. We modify our quorum to address that if we need to. And we don't need to make a change for dropping down to 6 members, for example. But if we drop down to 5, it would drop our quorum requirement to 3. So that's something that we probably don't need to go back to the council with, except to get another person appointed, if you just ask.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't clear on that. Okay, thank you, sir.
And it might be a point to whoever that nominee is by that council member to try to find an alternate because they selected that person.
But to go further, since we're discussing this, and we can't discuss it, I would hope that you could have a private conversation with a couple of the council members.
I've made an effort to do that.
Okay, the work to get this resolved.
So, as a follow-on question, would it be reasonable or unreasonable for us to actually come up with a list or a series of recommendations for replacements, or is that something that we want to completely offload on the council?
I would leave it up to the council person who chose that person.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I think we can tell them that some people have offered to do that. If they want to ask us for a recommendation, they certainly are free to do that. They can ask any one of us for a recommendation. But the council member is going to have the authority to choose whomever they want.
One thing I want to bring up real quick is that I had a conversation with the councilman real quick about kind of advertising and promoting what this group is doing and the Parks Commission. Just one thing on the city side is I have a staff member right now dedicating some time to cleaning up our website, to fixing some issues, making sure links are working, updating information and so on. We're going to get a upgrade here. Once we get all that taken care of, we contact Civic Plus. We're ready for an upgrade, and at that point they'll let us know if we need like additional pages or inserts, so that way we can put in a dedicated page to this group and the Parks Commission to let we can put the agendas on there, we can put informational purposes for these 2 committees on there to where all they have to do is select that page. So I'm working through that because we have to clean up the website because there's some outdated information and, like I said, links not working. And then we get with them and then they start updating the website, and that way we can have a dedicated page for this group and the Parks Commission. So, And another point, I'm gonna email everyone a copy of the final, street CIP so they can see,
Thank you.
like Mr. Paul was mentioning, you know, we have the mid-level, which is, again, full depth, mill and overlay, and then, and I wanted to let Mr. Paul know and remind him that in December, this council directed me to advertise for those 28 or 29 streets to do the seal coat. So we have our engineers working on, going out to advertise so we can get those bids in here soon.
Good. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, so, agenda number 10, we'll move forward here, our old business. Item number 1, I believe we rolled some of that into, as we previously talked, is there any discussion about item number 1 at this point?
I might just mention that with respect to drainage, I've had a lot of help from Councilman Quinn, and she has provided me with a copy of the Dare County Hazard Mitigation Plan, which would be helpful in terms of potentially funding this plan. Why would we do that and hopefully find something? And she also mentioned that the Corps of Engineers might be able to help us with some funding, and have begun looking into that, but not having any success yet. But anyway, the effort's underway. There's a lot of help from Councilman Quinn.
Okay. Agenda item number 2, members' opportunity to make announcements. Mark, any announcements this point?
No announcements at this time.
Okay, great, thank you. Jack?
I'm fully announced, thank you.
I'm gonna non-officially second exactly what Mark and Jack said. Skip the announcement.
I'll vote unanimously.
You forced it, okay, cool.
Okay. Okay, the last item, we need to announce the time and date of the next meeting. And, I've got a suspicion we're looking at February.
February 16th would be almost 30 days from this point.
February 16th, that's Saturday. That's good for my schedule.
Good for me.
It is also good for me.
Okay, that's good.
10 a.m. on February 16th.
10 a.m.
Okay, we need to vote on that.
All in favor? Okay.
And then designate who's gonna bring donuts and kolache so we don't overlap.
Turn is it?
I think it's my turn.
I don't think I brought.
Mark up and
Yeah, I tried to assist. I do what I can.
Okay, I don't think I brought, so I think I'll take on that role.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Second.
Third, fourth,